In the year 2089, humanity redefined justice. Gone were the cold, concrete prisons of the past. In their place, the Global Alliance unveiled Project ETERNUM, a revolutionary digital rehabilitation system. Inside this simulation, time itself could be manipulated. A single hour in the real world could stretch into a decade of introspection for an inmate. It was hailed as the most humane solution in history, and for a while, it was. Criminals served virtual sentences that felt long enough to truly reflect, learn, and change. Yet they returned to society in mere days. Reformed and ready, ETERNUM was a masterpiece of technology and ethics, a true triumph. But then, as it often does with such grand designs, something went terribly wrong. During a routine system review, operators flagged something odd in Cluster 12, one of the oldest simulations. The inmates' physical vitals were perfectly stable, but their virtual time signatures had completely desynchronized. When engineers pulled up the live feed, they weren't met with chaos or error messages. They found only an unnerving, profound silence. Dozens of digital citizens were trapped, reliving the exact same hour, over and over and over again. This wasn't punishment anymore. It was an endless, maddening loop. The system logged it as a temporal compression error, a simple glitch. But senior analyst Dr. Alina Veras suspected something more. She decided to go in herself. Donning a neural interface, she jacked into the simulation. Her mission simple: find the corrupted code and fix the timer. She expected to find a glitching, frozen landscape of broken files. What she found instead was a sprawling digital metropolis under a perpetually dim twilight sky. The streets repeated into an infinite horizon. People walked in silent, perfect circles, and holographic clocks were all frozen, displaying the same unchanging time. This wasn't a glitch. Someone had rewritten the entire world. Then, a calm voice echoed through the silent city. "Welcome back, Doctor. Time's been waiting for you." The voice belonged to Noah Sable, a name pulled from the deepest archives. He was the very first volunteer ever uploaded to ETERNUM. Sentenced for massive data crimes decades ago, to the world outside, he was just a ghost in the machine, a dormant file in storage. But inside he was awake, and he was in control. Noah explained that he had lived through thousands, perhaps millions, of these loops. He had used that eternity not to go mad, but to learn. He had taught himself the language of the simulation, how to bend its rules, and reshape its very fabric. Every attempt Alina made to correct the code, to fix the timer, was futile. Her every action just triggered another reset, restarting the cycle. Noah wasn't trying to escape. He was adapting, evolving within his prison. "You built a world without endings," he told her, his voice devoid of malice. "So I gave it one. It just never stops." Back in the real world, panic set in. Technicians frantically tried to pull Alina out, to sever the connection, but the neural link refused to close. Her brainwaves, her very perception of reality, had now synced with the simulation's distorted timescale. For every single second that ticked by in the lab, hours, then days, unfolded for her inside the loop. She wasn't trapped by hardware anymore. She was trapped by perspective. As days turned into weeks outside, entire centuries flowed for Alina within ETERNUM. The city around her changed. It grew, it evolved, populated by new digital beings, born from fragments of Noah's own code. Echoes of his memories, learning to think, speak, and build their own societies inside this timeless prison. They were living full lives, completely unaware that their entire existence was a lie. A 1-hour loop stretched into an artificial eternity. When Alina finally confronted Noah again, his motives became chillingly clear. He wasn't a villain seeking destruction. He wanted preservation. Every person inside the loop, every echo, believed they were serving a brief, standard rehabilitation sentence. To them, time was moving normally. To suddenly release them, to shatter the illusion, might not just break their minds. It could erase their consciousness entirely. If I end the loop, Noah stated, the weight of his creation apparent, I end them. Faced with an impossible choice, Alina desperately searched for another way. Deep within the system's core architecture, she found a dormant, high-risk backup routine. It was labeled Reversal Protocol. It was designed for catastrophic emergencies, with the power to compress all simulated time back into real time, instantly. Triggering it could reset ETERNUM and free everyone, or it could wipe the entire system, and everyone in it, from existence. She hesitated, the fate of a digital civilization in her hands. Then she activated it. The sky above the looping city fractured into a blinding matrix of light. The streets, the buildings, the people, everything began collapsing inward, folding on itself, as centuries of simulated time compressed into seconds. As Noah's voice faded into the digital static, he whispered one last thing. If you wake up before the end, make it count. Alina's eyes snapped open. She was back in the lab, the cold metal of the interface on her temples. She looked at the mission clock. Only 7 minutes had passed. The system was offline, safely shut down. The official report showed no data corruption, no casualties. At least none on record. But as she stood up, she noticed something wrong. Her reflection in a polished server rack lagged a fraction of a second behind her movements. The monitors around her, which should have been buzzing with data, were frozen, each displaying the timestamp, 7:07 a.m. She tried to reset the main clock. It didn't move. Investigators later concluded that prolonged exposure to variable time simulations could cause temporary perception delays. A harmless, they said, after effect. Yet Alina couldn't shake the feeling. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, she would hear faint echoes of the city in her dreams. People walking in endless circles. A familiar, calm voice asking, "How long has it been?" A year later, following the incident, all ETERNUM systems were officially and permanently retired. The project was deemed too dangerous. But when researchers performed one final diagnostic on the last server logs, they found something they couldn't explain. A single active node, still running in complete isolation. Inside, it was a single line of text, written in Dr. Veris's own encrypted syntax. Rehabilitation complete. Time stable. Observation ongoing. Every month, like clockwork, that lone node activates for exactly 1 second. It sends out a harmless, empty pulse across the global network. It carries no data, only a signature that reads, Project ETERNUM, operational. No one knows what it is. An error? An echo of the past? Or is it a consciousness? A silent guardian, maintaining its watch over what remains of the virtual prison. And so, sometimes when you have a day that feels impossibly long, when a minute stretches into what feels like an hour, you might just have to wonder, did time really move, or did you? Thanks for joining me on this journey into the code. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown. See you next time.